Starfield has the worst main story ever, and I truly, absolutely, 100% mostly mean that.
We have a lot to talk about. We're all here because we're committed to the biggest question of all. What's out there?
It's nonsensical, it's short but long, and honestly it flies in the face of everything that Starfield pretends to be. So let's talk about it. Number 1, Constellation is a vapid and lazy organization that only exists to serve the player and makes no sense. Let me ask you something. What does Constellation do? Seriously.
The Explorers Group? Thought they were kind of a joke.
Do they explore brave new worlds that nobody's ever seen before? Well, no, because you're limited to exploring the settled systems, which have outposts and old abandoned mines and refineries literally around every corner. Do they find and catalog new species of alien life? Well, no, because it doesn't seem like they have any data on creatures from any planet, much less the ones outside the door on their own. Seriously, I've come up with nothing that they could have possibly been doing for the 40 years that they've supposedly been in existence.
This is Space 1999, Eagle 1 spaceship.
Alpha Control, we have contact.
You can jettison the cockpit and engines, then link them up. It's Mini Eagle 1 in visual contact.
Alpha Control hookup is a go!
Constellation doesn't exist to find and discover new things, it exists for the player to find and discover new things to them. And that would be fine if in the lore Constellation hadn't been around for decades. So what I've just said highlights a big problem with the game, but how do you fix it? Well, I'm here to tell you. It's honestly rather simple. Instead of making Constellation this super old organization that's been around for years but hasn't accomplished anything, you make them a new organization that has to recruit people so that you can discover something. At the start of the game, you're approached by Barrett, who touched one of those ancient artifacts that you yourself had just handled, and it gave you both visions of something mysterious. But after that, everything just immediately falls apart because Barrett just gives you his ship and his robot and says, okay, go and find Constellation. They'll tell you exactly what to do.
Vasco, get her to the lodge. No deviations unless absolutely necessary, okay?
Well, he just screws off and goes and talks to some pirates, leading to you having to go save him later, but to find out that he's just made friends with the pirates, so who cares? It's at the part of the game where you all of a sudden get a ship and are told to go to New Atlantis, and you can choose to do that and follow the main story, or you could just go and do whatever you want. But the way it's presented really tries to goad the player into going and continuing the main story. You have Vasco as a companion who's going to be telling you, go to New Atlantis and go meet Constellation. You have a ship that's from Constellation, it belongs to them still, and you've essentially just stole it if you don't go and bring it back to them. And that's fine if you want to roleplay as a pirate or a scumbag, but if you're anyone with any sense of moral obligation, you're probably going to go and take it back to them. At that point, you meet Sarah Morgan, who's like the navigator of Constellation, who explains to you that Constellation has been around forever and they explore new and unidentified things in the universe. Except they don't, as we've previously discussed. So when you start a new game, you're thrust into this group of Constellation, an organization that's been around for decades but hasn't really done anything. You've got a bunch of people in this house just sitting around doing absolutely nothing, waiting for the player to show up for eternity. So I propose, instead of making Constellation an old organization, make it a new one. Have Barrett and Sarah be interested in learning more about these artifacts and wanting to create a group to find something that's unknown in the galaxy. You've now got both the player and Barrett who have touched these artifacts and have been given visions about something mysterious and nobody knows what it is. So in order to find out what it is, you need more people with different areas of expertise. So the first act of the game would then be going and finding these people and recruiting them. You would get a list of potential recruits. It would give the player agency to choose where they want to go and who they want to recruit first. Every character would have their own unique recruitment side quests on different planets, and it would serve to flesh out both the characters and the world. All with the end goal of everybody combining their unique skill sets so that you can go further in discovering what these artifacts are. Really, I just want the game to be One Piece in space. No, not that one. Never that one. So by the end of Act 1, you've actively recruited all the crew you're going to need and gotten to know them. You have a navigator, a scientist, an expert on universal religion. You've acquired funding from a corporate sponsor. You even have a cowboy and a toaster. It's perfect. You're ready to go off and make new discoveries.
Eldon's new Billy Blastoff. Now he walks.
That's Billy's
The jetpack on Billy's back powers his lunar crawler, runs the space-mobile, drives the moon tractor, and makes Billy Blastoff walk. Billy Blastoff. Now he walks.
Part 2. There are no discoveries to be made in this entire universe. Every single planet that you land on and explore has already had people on it. There's either an old mining facility, there's an outpost with a trader on it, there's random ships landing when you're just exploring the wilderness, and that's all awesome stuff, but it means you're not discovering anything new because dozens to hundreds to possibly thousands of people have already seen all this. Aside from finding a few recycled planetary traits, there are no non-man-made discoveries aside from some plants and animals that all look the same on every planet. Sure, you can see a glacial rock, but then you go 3 planets over and you find the exact same one. And then it's usually about half a kilometer away from somebody's house, so was it really a new discovery or was it just new to you? So you've got this world that wants you to scan and find new things, but everything that you see has already been found by somebody else. And then you have a main story that wants you to discover a new thing in a world where you can't discover new things. Do you see why this kind of makes no sense? All right. So you've got these artifacts, right? And nobody knows what they are. Nobody's ever seen them before, except you find most of them in mines, or you get one from some guy who collected one. And I guess just nobody ever saw one of these before or thought to catalog it or talk about it. I mean, I guess that makes sense because nobody ever bothered cataloging the coral bugs on the capital planet of the United Colonies. Or maybe Wikipedia is just down in this universe perpetually. Like maybe not enough people donated and it actually ceased operations. That could explain everything. So you've got these alien artifacts that I guess everybody has just been ignoring, and you're the first person to ever think, I wonder what these are. And you've conveniently just got this gigantic telescope that will tell you exactly where to find more of them. As a side note, again, going back to the first part, it would have been really cool if on your mission to recruit Vladimir, maybe you like go and find an upgraded version of the old Hubble telescope that's still orbiting Earth and you retrofit it so that you can find these artifacts. That would be really cool. You know, instead of it just sitting there for 40 years and nobody doing anything with it. So you find these artifacts and they take you to these ancient temples that are obviously not man-made, and you have to find out who built these things and what do they do? What does it all mean? And you look over to the right and you see a giant crane and a settlement and people just hanging around. Hey guys, do you see those floating rocks over there? You ever been over there? You ever wondered what those are? No? You're just here to mine argon? Okay. I mean, I get it, that's the job, but, you know, floating rocks, ancient aliens, discovery! So you've got these ancient temples that are on planets that are populated by people, and everybody has just seemingly ignored. And that's fine if they had no mineral resources to offer, but you'd think that somebody at the science outpost that's like 300 meters away would go and like knock on the rock and be like, wow, this is really weird and not like any element I've ever seen. I should probably study it. Oh my god, they're on like every single planet. What the hell is going on? But no, everybody's just like researching ice or some shit. And like these temples are seemingly undefended too. Like there's nothing stopping you from just going inside and seeing what's in there. I guess maybe it wouldn't open for you, but like you could at least scan it or do something. Or maybe somebody would find an artifact in one of the identical mines that you go to on every planet and be like, oh, this looks like the giant floating temple rock place that I saw. I wonder if it's connected. So when you're playing Starfield, it makes you feel like everybody is ignoring the giant floating rock elephant in the room. Like it's actually impossible to miss. And just like before, I have a solution. Put aliens in the game. Seriously, aliens would solve pretty much every issue with Starfield. You're already borrowing so much from No Man's Sky, Mass Effect, and all those other sci-fi properties, why not just go the whole mile? Just put some aliens in. You can have your reptile race, you can have your elf race, you can just copy Elder Scrolls, that's fine. Because when you just have a bunch of humans running around and ignoring the obvious alien temples, it doesn't make sense. But if you have different alien species in the game that are sapient, that have their own architecture and culture and all this stuff, it inherently just makes more sense that you would ignore some things that you find, because for all you know, you're just walking into some alien's outhouse. And then it gives the narrative writers for the game the ability to write lore for these different temples so that you kind of know what you're getting into. So humanity knows what they are, but doesn't necessarily know the reason for their existence, and they seem completely inert, so they just kind of ignore them. That is until you find this ancient artifact that actually unlocks something. You know, have a reason for Joe Blow at the cryo facility to not care about the floating rocks that are 400 feet away. Or maybe at these temples, they're just too dangerous to explore, and sometimes people do go and try to find some ancient alien treasure that's there, but there's traps and there's these ancient alien threats that will try to kill you if you go anywhere near them. You know, something interesting like the Dwemer from Skyrim, but in space. Oh, so you just want it to be like Elder Scrolls then, eh? Well, yeah. That was fun. I like fun games. But there isn't any interesting lore. The game doesn't even answer its own questions by the end of it. It just kind of leaves everything up to your own interpretation, which would be good if there was anything to interpret. Did some sort of ancient aliens create these artifacts and temples? Did one version of humanity create this technology in a different universe that allowed them to traverse the multiverse? I don't know. So I guess that what I'm trying to say is that in order to make like a compelling narrative, you need to have some sort of lore in the background that's already been discovered that you can read through and experience as you play the game, or you need to uncover something that gives you a satisfying answer by the end of it. And that answer can be ambiguous. It doesn't need to be like, okay, aliens made it. You can kind of leave it up to interpretation, but there needs to be something there. Instead, the answer is we don't know, but here's a kind of cool New Game Plus feature that No Man's Sky already did. And I'm not taking away from the idea of the New Game Plus. I think it's actually kind of cool, but everything leading up to it doesn't make me want to go back and play the game again in that New Game Plus. Why would I want to experience this story again that has no twists and turns, nothing interesting, no real choices besides like one of the companions dying or the other? When you start New Game Plus, they even give you the option to completely skip the story and just be like, hey, I'm from another universe, I'm gonna go gather these artifacts. And everybody's like, okay, let's go do that. And then you just do the most boring part of the game over and over again. You find an artifact in a mine. You find an artifact in a laboratory. You find an unguarded temple on a planet. Okay, well, to be fair, there's one Starborn guarding it. Okay, sorry, I guess I haven't mentioned Starborn yet. Basically, Starborn are... What are Starborn? See, this is what I'm saying. There's no interesting lore. Like, I get it. Starborn are supposed to be people from other universes that have already collected all the artifacts and they're going to try to collect more so they can gain more power. But that's it? There's no grand plan to any of this? What's the end goal to this? Nobody seems to know.
To meet the demands of a long spaceflight, Space Food Sticks had to be a compact, nutritious, high-energy food. That's why they make the perfect between-meal energy snack. Chocolate, caramel, and peanut butter. About 44 calories. At your grocer's next to the instant breakfast section. Space Food Sticks, the energy snack from U.S. Aerospace Research and Pillsbury.
Part 3. Nobody seems to know or care about anything. Why should I be invested in a main story when even the main antagonists don't seem to care about whether they succeed at their goals or not? Because the two antagonists that you meet in the game don't give a crap what happens. One shows up and threatens you, the other one shows up and attacks you. And then they call a truce, then you talk to them, and one says, hey, I'm a good guy because I threatened you before attacking you. And the other one says, hey, I don't really care, I just do whatever I want, so I attacked you.
The emissary threatened your ship, demanded you hand over your artifact. How is that so different from what I did?
That other guy is really a bad guy because he wants to do the same things that I do, but he decided that he would not do them first and then ask if he could do them and then just do it anyways no matter what. Okay, thank you. Oh my gosh, and their armor is black and white. It's like there's a clear evil and good choice. I love having choices in the game. Morality scales. Okay, that's not true. There is the obligatory third choice where you just say f them both, which is the choice that 98% of players are gonna choose. Because black and white morality choices are stupid and not interesting. So you choose to say screw both of these guys and you're gonna do everything on your own and you're not gonna let them accomplish their goal of collecting all the artifacts and becoming more powerful. They just say, okay, whatever, we'll go have a duel later once you've collected all the artifacts. We can wait, none of this really matters to us, we've done this 1,000 times already. Wow, you're really making this feel important. Like, why do I care about any of this? Nobody's gonna blow up the universe, these guys don't even seem like they care about collecting the artifacts and whether or not they're successful. Existence and their one calling has lost all meaning to them, and you're flat out told that you're doing the same thing that they are, so what does anything mean to you? What is the reason for wanting to complete this main storyline? Hell, even in the final showdown, if you have a high enough speech level, you can just say, hey, will you let me have all the artifacts this time because neither of you care anyways. And they just give them to you, and that's where the main story ends. You just walk up to them and say, pretty please, can I have some alien artifacts? They give them to you and then they go away. Like, what is that? There's no payoff to any of it. So you end the main storyline by choosing whether or not you want to go into another universe, and if you do, it starts like a New Game Plus mode where you get the super fancy ship and armor and stuff, but all your possessions and credits and everything that you've accrued throughout your playtime goes away. And the ship that you get is kind of cool, but it doesn't have any crafting stations on it or beds, so you can't like sleep and wait if you land on a planet and it's like pitch black out at night. You go exploring on this random planet, but you have to go fast travel somewhere else because you have no weapon modification stations if you find something new and cool. And being totally honest, the New Game Plus feature, while kind of interesting, flies in the face of everything that Bethesda does well as a studio, which is having your character be very important and making a difference in the universe that they're in. And that's no exception in Starfield. In Starfield, you can go and save entire cities, you can go and form relationships with people, get married, all this stuff. And then at the end of the main storyline, they just want you to say, okay, bye, I don't care about any of you, I'm just gonna go restart everything and do whatever I want. And that's fine if you don't care about the main story or any of the characters, or you want to do different choices. But if you make a story-driven RPG, you kind of want players to care about those things. What I'm saying is the entire storyline of Starfield goes against everything that Bethesda does well and highlights its flaws. It feels like there were two separate teams with different design philosophies creating the game. One was creating a nice handcrafted Bethesda RPG experience where your choices somewhat matter, you make some relationships, and you change the universe for good or worse. And the other one said, okay, we just want players to be able to go through this content over and over and over and over again, and we need to get them there as fast as we can, without any care as to whether or not the storyline in the game made sense or interacted well with the rest of the game. Oh, I didn't touch on the Starborn either. I have an idea for that too. So, you know how the Starborn are just like people from other universes that collected all the artifacts and now they're going to different universes trying to collect all of them so they get more powerful? Why was that not a pseudo online component? And I know people hate hearing about like online components and their single player RPGs and all that stuff, but I'm not really thinking about it in like a Fallout 76 sense. This is more of an idea for something like Dark Souls, for example. What if the Starborn, instead of just being random people that disappear when you shoot them, what if they were actual player builds from other universes? You know, players that had completed the game and then they get their player data uploaded and then you randomly run into other players' characters when you're playing the game. That could be really interesting because you're constantly running into people that have different weapons, different armor, different builds, different everything every time you play it. You know, kind of like combining invasions from Dark Souls or Elden Ring with something like the Nemesis system from Shadow of War. So you're walking around exploring or trying to find an artifact or something, all of a sudden another ship appears, right? And a player is inside there. You know it's a player's character. The player isn't actually playing, but it's got that player's character build, their model, and all their loot, so you know that you're in for a potentially really tough battle but it probably has some really good loot and rewards at the end. And you kind of get that pseudo-social experience, you know, where you know that your player character could be appearing in other people's universes. Maybe you get like a notification when another player defeats your character or something like that. You know, something fun and cool and innovative that isn't just shooting people that die and don't drop any loot. God, I hate this main story so much, it drives me insane. So those are my thoughts on the Starfield main story. You can go down in the comments to yell and scream at me. I don't really care, I always assume you're 12.
Here's how the story goes, we find out by the treasure in the grand line, there's no doubt. The pirate whose eye is on it, he'll sing, I'll be king of the pirates, I'm gonna be king.
His name is Luffy.
That's Monkey D. Luffy.
King of the pirates. He's made of rubber. How did that happen?
Yo ho ho, he took a bite of gum gum.